In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove and replace a backing plate on a front knuckle on a Jeep Patriot located in the front suspension. So with a 19mm socket, we're going to remove the tire. If your tire is frozen on, always put a lug nut back on partially by hand tight. Give it a bang. So the ABS sensor goes right here into the knuckle, and it's got a mounting bolt. That's a 10mm socket. We're going to take that mounting bolt right out. Set it aside. Now we'll see if we can grab this cable and move it back and forth. See if we can get it loose. Now with a pair of pliers, I'm going to wiggle this and hopefully not break it, and then pull at the same time. See if we can get it to come up right out. So now you can follow the ABS sensor around and pull out these little clips. So I'm just going to use a pair of cutters. You can use needle nose, anything that will get in there. I'm going to take my boot off the bleeder, dust boot. I'm going to set that aside. And the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that bleeder screw breaks free. And that looks like an 8mm. With a catch basin, I'm going to put the catch basin below my caliper so I can break that bleeder screw free so I can confirm I'll be able to bleed it after. Nice. Now it's loose enough. Just snug it so it doesn't rip while you're working. And we're going to dismount our caliper. Two mounting bolts right here are 14mm sockets. And just break them free. Then I'll get my electric 3/8 gun, make it go faster. Now when you remove a pin, sometimes some cars come equipped with pins and rubber boots. So make sure you know which pin the rubber boot came with. This one is missing, so we'll check to make sure it didn't get stuck in the caliper bracket. But the pin goes on the bottom for this particular car. Take the top bolt out. Now with a pry bar, I'm just going to back this caliper off. And I'm just going to set it up here for a little bit. Take my pads out. Now we're going to take our caliper and we're going to put our caliper spreader tool in. You can use a pair of welding pliers, like the big locking pliers with a clamp or a C-clamp. If you don't have this tool, you want to make sure that piston works and goes back, just so that you're doing a proper brake job and you know that all the things are working properly. Now, I particularly like to open the bleeder screw. That's why I broke it free. Just enough, so when I push the fluid back, the dirty fluid doesn't go into the master or an ABS module. Now my catch basin's right below me. I'm just going to push that piston back and judge how it feels, nice and smooth. That's what we're looking for. Okay, that bottomed out. Just close your bleeder screw. That was an 8mm wrench, just like the socket. Now the piston's back perfectly, and we can get that up out of the way. If you have a caliper hook, go ahead and use it at this time. Help suspend that and make it not put stress on that actual flex hose. I'll just hang mine from the strut. There we go. Now we're going to dismount our caliper bracket. And that's 2 bolts at the back there, and they're 18mm socket. Get the top one. Now we can set that aside and we'll clean it up later. Let's discard the rotor. So now we're going to take our tie rod end off the knuckle end and get that cotter pin. So just take a pair of cutters, get that cotter pin out. Let's see if we can expose it this way and discard it. Now we're going to take that castle nut off, 18mm socket, and back it off. We lucked out, it popped right out. Now if your tie rod end doesn't pop out of the knuckle, you just want to leave the castle nut on like this and take a hammer and you want to hit the side right here, and then it will just pop down the way that fell down. We'll take that castle nut all the way off, pull the tie rod end out, and I just like to put things back so I don't have them all over the place. So now we're going to take our pinch bolt out of where the ball joint goes into the knuckle. And this is two 18 millimeters, one wrench and one socket. I'm going to use 1/2-inch drive and pull that bolt out. So now to separate the ball joint from that knuckle, I'm going to use what they call a pickle fork. And I'm going to try to get in there without damaging that boot. So with like a cold chisel, I'm just going to see if I can separate the ear of this. Kind of give it a spread. There we go. Get movement. Now with the pry bar, I'm going to see if I can pull down on this, get this to pop out. So now we're going to remove our axle nut. So take the cotter pin out and make sure you discard it. Always use new ones. Now this has what we call like a castle nut cover, and then a spring. That's what that flat washer is. It's got a little bow to it that keeps pressure on it. So the axle nut is a 32 millimeter socket, and let's take that right off. And there's a flat washer on the inside here. Set those aside. Like you saw, I can push the axle in and out clearly. Now we'll take the strut, nut and bolt off. Now a 21 millimeter socket on this side and a 21 millimeter wrench holding the nut. We'll start taking these strut bolts out. I'm going to leave that one in, and I'm going to move down to the bottom one. Now with a rubber mallet, I'm going to hammer that bottom bolt out, set it aside with the two nuts, and now I'm going to try to do the same to the top. There we go. Now holding the actual knuckle and hub, take that out, break it free from that strut, and then slide it off the axle nut. So we got to press this bearing out, which is inside this knuckle, and this is the hub, which has got the wheel studs on it, and that's pressed in the center of the wheel bearing. Now the lock for this bearing is on this side, so we have to press the hub out first, just the center of the hub, and you'll see the bearing left in there. So I've got to set this up. Let that lift up. Now we can take your knuckle out of the way, and you'll see the actual spindle. So now with the hub pressed out of the way, we are clear to get our backing plate off. Let's see if we can just tap it out. There we go. Let's get that out of the way. We'll clean up the mess. So you're going to want to clean up the hub area with a wire brush, just so it has a smoother surface to glide on. Just go all the way around, make sure you get all the rust out of the way. So now we want to line that up again. So what I used was a rubber mallet, and I held down firmly on one side and hit the other. And then just worked my way around. Check your plate. You want to make sure it's flush, seated. Make sure that these bolt holes for that knuckle caliper bracket will line up, just like that. So now we're going to press the hub back in to the bearing, and what we have to do is this centerpiece, you can't just push the hub through, you have to hold this centerpiece from moving, because the hub will push it right out and separate those races from the bearing, and it will destroy the bearing. So we need to hold this like this. We're going to put it in the center of our cup, then place that down on there. Give it a nice little That's good. Let's see what it looks like. Well, that's perfect. See how it seats right in there? It spins nice and smooth. It's ready to install. Slide that axle spindle right inside there. Line up the spurs. And get our strut mounted up. Just at least put the top bolt through. Then the bottom bolt, bring that out. Beautiful. We're going to tighten up our strut mounting bolts. I'm going to put the 21mm on the nut. That way it can suck in the bolt and put that knurl right into the new knuckle and not spin it. And I'm just snugging them because we're going to torque them once everything's together. So first thing we're going to do is put the flat washer on first, then the actual axle nut. Bottom that out. Now you can't put on the rest of it, which would be the spring washer and then the castle spacer washer and then the cotter pin until you lower this and torque it. So we'll put the rest together, then do that. All right, before I put my new rotor on, I'm going to spray my hub so that it has no corrosion, possibly. I don't want to deal with that in the future. I'll take our new rotor and put it on. So now we're going to clean up our bracket so we can put the brakes back together. Discard the old hardware because you get new ones with our kits. And now we're going to take a wire brush and clean the surface here. You want to make sure all the rust is gone, any dust or debris. This is in good shape, actually. It's just taking off some of the road rust. You know, there's no chunks. It's not peeling. Do that to both sides. Spray it with some brake clean, let it dry. While that's drying, we're going to examine our boots, make sure that the caliper boots are in good shape. They're not swollen, no tears in them. And we're going to take our silicone paste or caliper grease, whichever you prefer, and we're going to load up the boots. And I just take a pocket screwdriver and I'll bring it right down inside the boot. And I want to get it all inside the groove of the boot. Keeps it flexible, and it also applies to the actual pin once it slides back and forth when you go down the road. We'll be putting paste on the pin once we clean it up. Now we're going to take I like to put silicone grease because it's waterproof and caliper or caliper grease on the bottom of the tins, not the top. Do it both the top and bottom. And this stops water from building in here and causing those tins to swell and put pressure on the pads. Now I don't put grease on the top of the tins because they're brand new. I want to keep them shiny and moving smoothly. Grease will only attract dirt or brake dust, and then it will never let the pads slide in and out freely. So we'll take our tins, bracket tins, and apply them. this case, there is no top and bottom. They're both the same size. Some vehicles you'll see one wider than the other, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So before we put this bracket on, we have the rubber pieces missing off the pin. Now, if this is on the car, it's the bottom pin. So I'm going to take that boot completely out, and I'm going to go in there and see if I can fish out the rubber piece. And there it is. I can feel it. So I ended up getting a hook because the pocket screwdriver wouldn't work. Well, there it is. So it pays to make sure if it is gone on the pin that it's inside there. So we'll clean these pins up, remount this, and put it together. So now we're going to put our boot back on, and you just basically take that big spacer and you're just going to drop it in, and it miraculously pops right into place. Now we'll take our pins, and these are in great shape, so all I did was take a rag and kind of clean them off. We have that boot. We're going to slide that right on there, set it aside, and I just, like I said, you could take a wire wheel to them if they need to, but these are in great shape. We'll set them aside. Now we can install the bracket. So now we're back at the wheel. We're putting our caliper bracket on, line it up, put the first mounting bolt through. There we go. Start it by hand. Now with our 17mm socket, we're going to snug them up. So we're taking that 17mm socket and our torque wrench, and the torque for bracket to knuckle on these two bolts is 80 foot-pounds. And just double check. So now when we install our pads, we have these indicators. These are like spring and noise indicators. Tells you when the pad is at the minimal. So the proper way to install those is, this would be the outer pad, fits right in that bracket, but you want to put the sensor on, and you want to put it on the point of the first contact. So the rotor goes this way 90% of the time. So therefore you would put this pin, or shall I say indicator, right in that groove with the flat piece facing the pad. So just like that, pop it down in. And then you take your brake pad and put it in. Same on the other side. It's going to go on the top, not on the bottom. First contact. That would be the top. Line it up. Slide it in. So I'm going to take my slider pins and I'm going to put some silicone or caliper grease, whichever you prefer. Just coat them. We've already filled the boots. And now I'm going to get that caliper and mount it up. So I put it on the hook up here. Let's get it off the hook. Let's make sure that hose is facing the proper way, because it gets twisted sometimes. Then we'll line up the caliper, put it right on. The top pin is the one without the rubber bushing on this particular caliper. So we'll slide that right in. Get to let the air out. Sometimes air gets in that boot. Hand start it. And the bottom one has that rubber pin on it. If the boot looks like that, just reach your finger in there and just line it up. Then you can slide the pin in and then hand start it. That's that 14mm socket we're going to get and snug it up. So I'll just let them bottom out. 14mm socket, and the torque for caliper to bracket is 32 foot-pounds. Try it one more time. Okay, so now we can put our tie rod back on. Slide that up through. Put the castle nut on. 18mm, and we're going to snug that castle nut up, then we'll torque it to specs. 18mm, and the torque spec is 97 foot-pounds. But we have to line up the castle nut with the hole so we can put the cotter pin in. So let's slide the cotter pin right through. Make sure you use a new one. I like to, everyone does these differently. I like to pull them over, cut them, and I'll cut this bottom one real short and then hammer it down. All right, so now we can push the knuckle in, push that ball joint. I'm going to try to line that up. go. Okay, so now we have it started in the knuckle. Take another rubber mallet and I'm just going to give it some taps. See how it's starting to slide in? And that ball joint has that cutout, so it's a half moon, and that's where the bolt's going to go through. So you can see the mounting hole, and it's not all the way up yet. And there it is. Put the nut on the other side. Now let's get a pole jack. If you're down on the ground, you can use a regular jack. We're going to bring the suspension up so it's road height. Now with our pole jack right below that ball joint, I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to bring the suspension up like it's ride height. Paying attention that I'm only pushing the suspension up. If I see the body move at all, I'm going to back it down. Snug up the ball joint pinch bolt, 18 millimeter. And now we can tighten it, torque it to specs, 18 millimeter socket and wrench. That's 60 foot-pounds. I'm going to put the wrench on the back and hold it. Now we can lower our suspension. So now we're going to take the car and lower it so we can torque this axle nut. Then we can put the castle nut washer on and the cotter pin. So what I like to do to hold that from spinning, I take my long pry bar and I'll use it just like that. Lock those studs in. Torque specs for this hub axle nut is 180 foot-pounds. So we're going to bring it right up to 180. It's important not to go over or under because it's a pressed bearing inside. And if it's too loose, it'll break free. And if it's too tight, it'll make it explode. 32 millimeter socket, and we'll tighten it right up. So we're going to put our new spring washer on. That goes on first. Castle locking washer, and then the new cotter pin. Bring that right down. Get a kind of push in on it because of the spring on that washer. Then I like to take the cotter pin and bring it up and cut the bottom one off. Take your sensor, guide it through the mounting spot. Take your little 6 millimeter bolt with that 10 millimeter head for a socket and start it by hand. Get your little socket, 10 millimeter. We're just going to snug it because the torque spec is 13 foot-pounds. So just snug it down. And there we go. Let's get our torque wrench. Okay, 13 foot-pounds. Now we can put our tire back on. Just hand start the lug nuts. That's a 19 millimeter socket. We're just going to snug it up before we torque it and do it in a star pattern. Okay, now we can lower it and torque it to specs. Wheel torque is 100 foot-pounds. We're going to torque it in a star pattern. After finishing this installation, it's important to have an alignment done on your vehicle. When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.